I'm Johan, and I represent Chartboost. Chartboost, for you who don't know it, we are the world's largest mobile games only advertising network. I run the European operations, and as part of that we have a creative studio that is also part of what we do in Europe. I also am co-founder of a company called Cloud Games, which focuses on interactive ads, being playables and interactive videos mostly. So in today's talk, we're going to go through a bit about, okay, how did mobile ads evolve over the years, and why are we now in interactive ads, and why are they the best? A few reasons why it's a really good idea to go interactive. And then we talk about the different ad formats that we have in interactive ads, and then which ad formats you should choose. And then the truly, personally, I think, cool thing about the interactive ads is that you can generate a lot more data, especially in-ad data. So we look a little bit about that, and then we end up with a case study that the Chartboost Creative Studio did together with Playrix. And then I'll leave some room for questions as well at the end. So, evolution of mobile ads. Well, as we know, it started out on mobile with banners coming directly from the web. Very low click-through rates, pretty bad conversion, low CTRs. They're quite commonly used still though. They do generate a lot of money, very easy to put in, but yeah, very, very basic type of ad. Followed a couple of years later by interstitial. Not sure if you can see because of this chair there, but yeah, it's the same thing basically, but you have an overlay instead. You have it in natural breaks of the game, right? Just a static. Better CPM, better click-through rate and all that. So a step up from banners, but still very, very basic type of ad unit. Video hit a few years ago, 4 or 5 years ago or so. And obviously became a much more popular and higher converting, higher CPM ad unit, and it's the biggest one right now, best converting, best ad unit out there today. Then the whole development of ads took a little bit of a dip when the integrated GIFs. They work sometimes in some countries, but I wouldn't recommend them very much. They most of the time don't work that well. However, finally, a couple of years ago, we started with interactive ads, and that's, in my opinion, the next generation of ads, basically. Today, we have the best performing ads that we have in Chartboost is by far interactive and video. They outperform anything else. So a few reasons then, why is it important to be interactive? First of all, with an interactive ad, you can engage much more with users can engage much more with the ad, right? Which makes it, it's much more compelling, right? You can actually experience kind of what you're supposed to experience from the app or the product later on, right? So that you also get a lot more time in the ad than you do with other ad units. So then for a brand, in terms of awareness and recall, it's also that engagement also enhances kind of the brand message that a brand can send. Conversion rates are much higher than other ad units besides video for some ads. So it depends a little bit what type of ad, but it's usually better. And then the fourth part here, the long-term customers, which is really retention. Retention is also usually better. Because, I mean, obviously, if you play the game a little bit, or you go through the product's interaction a little bit already in the ad, you know what to expect. Which means that you're less likely to uninstall the app, and you're more likely to stay in the app longer. And then the last part, which personally I think is the best part of it, is that you can measure everything, basically, in an interactive ad. And I'll get to why. So, the different formats. First of all, very basic on interactive ads. It's basically an HTML5 based ad shown in the web view frame when we talk an app, right? So anything that you can program in HTML5, that is basically an interactive ad. And if we do an example here, playables is the most, when people think about interactive ads for mobile apps, it's usually playables. That's the most commonly used ad as well. It works pretty well. Basically, you play the game inside the app. So imagine me clicking here on these bubbles for this simple bubble shooter game, right? And this is the ad basically. So nothing revolutionary really. I'm sure you've seen all of this before. Another one that is a little bit becoming my personal favorite are interactive videos. Because this is basically a playable ad as well, but instead of cool animations that you have to program, which takes time and it also takes size, you put in snippets of video instead. So basically you show a video and then you stop and then you let the user be able to interact. So basically choosing one of the pictures. And then instead of having a cool animation, you just show another video. And let me just show you how this works basically. Here you get to choose, you get the result, which is video. Again, you get to choose, you get the picture, right? The nice thing again about this is that you don't have to program the animations. It also means that you can make much better animations. So for instance, a slots game or a match 3 game, which in a playable are relatively basic, can now have all the bells and whistles of a video ad basically. So this is a very nice, relatively new ad unit, or way to work basically with interactive ads. Then we have the famous animated showcase. This is basically imagine having an ad for a car. And you click on it and you be able to do a kind of a 360 look around inside a car, that kind of thing. Quite popular for especially products, not so much apps and games, but a lot for products. And then the last part I want to go through is hybrids, where you basically mix these types of ads, where you have a little bit of interaction, a little bit of video, maybe a little bit of gyroscope or 360 or something like that. So that's basically the 4 most common interactive ad units out there today. So, of course, like any ad units, it's important to choose the right ones for you and your audience. And you need to know who you want to target and in what type of game. If you do this game-centric, what type of game you want to target, right? And what kind of gameplay that attracts specific users. I'll get to this. This is quite interesting, actually, in the sample we did with Playrix. It really showed that what type of gameplay you choose really matters. So I mean, if you want to target the hipster or you in beard, or you want to target the kids, it makes a huge difference. I think more than any other ad units, basically. So basic stuff, really, but it matters. Research the target group, understand what core part of the game really benefits that group, and then analyze a lot, not just in the game but also around it. Like we mentioned here, for instance, App Store listings is a good thing to also see. Okay, what's working, what's popular with which kind of target groups, and then do A/B testing, like with everything. And now finally we're at the best part of the playable ads, and that's the added data. So here's an I'll get to a better example later, but this is just a really quick overview of the way we work with the bubble shooter game from Bitmango. And basically, as you can see on the left, we had 4 different parts of the game, and we measured the drop-off rate for each part. It's a little bit hard to see, but you see that for every time we move from one screen to the next, we measure the drop-off rates, right? Just like you would do in a game, basically, with a tutorial or anything like that. And we summarized what we call IPM in Chartboost, which is installed per mil, which is basically installed per 1,000 impressions. And the original version had 2. So we made this one, we analyzed this, we got the drop-off rates, and we saw that, okay, we have a little bit of a problem here and here. So we made another version where we changed the tutorial and got much better drop-off rates, which landed an increase in IPM by, what is that, 20%? So yeah, this is, to me, this is kind of the magic of the playable ads. And this, I think, case study that we did together with Playrix, I'll show now, we'll show that a little bit more. So one app that we've done a lot of playables for is Homescapes from Playrix. And the goal for this exercise was obviously to improve IPM, so installs per impression. And the game, for anyone who hasn't played Homescapes, do it, by the way, it's a great game. There are 2 different elements of the game. There's the match 3 element, a traditional match 3 type of game, and then also simulation type of game where we actually you decorate rooms basically. So this makes if you want to do a playable for this and you want to mimic the whole game, it makes it quite long and quite complicated. So what we did 3 different versions. We did a long version, and then we actually turned out it was a bit long, so we actually did a shorter one of the longer version. And then we did the match 3 gameplay only, and then we did the simulation part only as well. And then we ran them against each other, and we saw. So again, this is looking at the different screens that you can have. This is a long version. Small numbers, I apologize for that, but we can basically see that when we start the game and go to the next stage, we lose 70% of players basically. So big drop off in the beginning, right? There's also big drop off at the actual gameplay for the match 3 part. So between the match 3 part and the simulation part, there's another almost 70% drop off as well, and then another 40% for next screen, and then after that obviously you get to the end screen, so it's almost no drop off. But basically we see that there are a couple of pain points where you here and here where you lose a lot of users, right? So this makes it really easy to develop the next version. So what we did basically is that we cut out the tutorial, we took that off, we took out this part as well for the long version. So that's kind of like the short part of it. That's the 1.1 version. And then, as I mentioned before, also we had the version 2 was only focusing on this gameplay, and version 3 was only focusing on this gameplay. And the results were quite interesting actually, because it showed that the original long version, we had an IPM of 1.3, which is relatively low for this type of game. But when we cut it down, when we took out the pain points basically, as we saw before, we doubled the IPM. So for the same number of impressions, and this is the same target group and all that kind of stuff, by the way, this is one-on-one comparison. So we actually doubled IPM by just making the ad a little bit shorter on certain parts, right? And it also showed that when we only did the match 3 gameplay, we also had a much better conversion rate than the original long version, but worse than the shorter version of the full game. But what's also interesting actually in this is that the version that won, which had 3.4 IPM, was when you had only the simulation, which you may not actually think as the core gameplay, because this originally is a match 3 game, right? You match things, and then this simulation part is just supposed to be an add-on, but it's actually that part that converted the best. That was actually most appreciated by the users. So this is, as you can see, the nice thing about this is that it's so easy to see these pain points as long as you measure them. Compared to video where you have the start and the end, and yeah, you can see at what time in the ad the people dropped off. But here you can really pinpoint the exact kind of screens that you need to work on, which makes it really easy to make kind of a good impact. And this, again, IPM installs per 1,000 impressions. It doesn't have an exact one-on-one relationship with CPM, but it's relatively close. So if we for instance here with this change only, when we double IPM, we brought up CPM by about 50% as well. Which means, for a network like us, it's 50% more revenue basically, and for Playrix, it means 50% more installs. Alternatively, lower CPI, which means a higher ROI for the same amount. So that's it, guys. Short and sweet. Any questions? No?
I have a mic which I can bring to anyone in the audience who wants to ask a question. I have a question. That's it. Do you have any evidence about which particular type of interactive ad the players of the host game find most acceptable?
Right. Yeah, yes. That's a really good question. It really depends. Famous answer. If you're looking, for instance, at a game like a slots game, if you're playing a slots game and you see slots ads, it's a bit less annoying, so to say. You can appreciate it a little bit more. If you're in, for instance, a game, let's say Dune from Voodoo, where you have different levels, right? And the same gameplay over and over. And if you're between two different gameplays, and you have an interactive an interstitial placement between the two levels, it doesn't really matter what type of ad you have. It's going to be annoying anyway, because you just want to get to the next level. You just want to play on. So I think that if you have an ad that is similar to the original app that the user is in, it's more appreciated than else otherwise. But it also matters a lot on the placement. For instance, a rewarded placement where a user is expecting to watch a video or play an ad, then that's pretty well appreciated in general, because then it's nicer to play a game than to watch a video usually. Whereas if you have the interstitial placement, users usually don't appreciate ads as much. Thank you. Right. We have, I think, another question.
Oh, great. I'll bring you the mic so that everyone can hear your question. There we go.
Hi, I'll try and word this right. So we know about incentivized adverts, and if you watch my advert, you get a life or whatever in the game.
Right.
Do you think that there is a incentivized engagement interactive advert? So because basically when I'm playing the games, I'll watch an ad for the extra life, but I don't do anything. I just let the timer run out. Do you think there's a chance we can connect the two so that it can track if you actually did engage with it and then you'll get uplift?
Yeah, that's the next generation.
Oh, I've gone the next generation already.
Hopefully from us. It would be awesome. So I think the question is basically, can you connect the result in the ad to the actual game, right? So yeah, if you could actually in the ad, gain some coins or whatever currency and then actually find it in the game, that would be really good. Or let's say that you're in one game and you interact with the ad from the other game, but because you interacted well, you actually get rewarded in game one more than you would by just watching it. That would be a really, really good, 2.0. Mental note, yeah. So we don't have it. I don't think it exists, but it would be a really good ad unit, yes.
Cool. Do we have any other questions for Johan here? Oh, there we go. Probably this is our last question, I think, in terms of time. There we go.
Thank you. Have you ever realized the significant difference between any post-install metrics versus playable ads versus videos? Because, I don't have the data, but I assume that playable ads could have a higher retention because they play the game, they see what it looks like, and then they come to game, they might be playing more. And especially if there's anything with monetization level, that will be helpful.
Usually you see much better retention, yes. Because you know what you get basically. But it depends also. It depends on the game that you're advertising. It also depends what your ad looks like. Because sometimes the playables actually are a bit different than the original game as well. Like for instance, the example I just gave you, the best, if you see the ad where you actually see the simulation and not the match 3 part, and that's what attracts you, you may come into the game and see the match 3 piece and say, oh well, this wasn't what I expected. So again, the answer is depends, but usually you see a better retention with a well-made playable ad, yes. But it's also just one caveat is that it matters a lot between well-made playables and poorly made playables. Poorly made playables convert really, really badly and have bad retention rates. But well-made playables perform usually much better than video.